People of power, welcome to Mount Fitness MBS, where I am your host, Brother Minister Mongoose. And if you happen to be tuning in for the very first time, let me inform you guys that this is a holistic mind, body, and spirit ministry, which I'll give a little bit more information about that towards the end of the video. But thank you guys for tuning in. You know, right here, we address any and all subject matter that we deem to be significant, relevant, and substantive when it comes to the human experience. So absolutely no subject matter is considered taboo here at Mount Fitness MBS. It's our perspective it's our view that, you know, if he open your eyes to the fact that it exists and you streamline that, flush that through, and he informs you that it is a subject matter that is not just a part of the human experience, but it's relative, it's important, it's substantive, then he wouldn't have opened your eyes to that truth had he not want you to be aware of it, to address it, to seek it out, to get understanding of it, spread the word, etc., etc. And the same thing, for that matter, applies when it comes to your mind, your body, and your spirit. He didn't give you these three different components of you for you to, not become familiar with, to prioritize, to nourish, and strengthen, and all that kinds of good stuff. But we'll talk about that a little bit more towards the end of the message, guys. Today, as you are aware, this is a chapter 2 where we're talking about the job description of both the 144,000 and the chosen ones. Now, if you haven't watched chapter 1, please check it out. I'm going to seek to not regurgitate any of that information just for the sake of getting all that I need to get in this particular chapter 2. There is a little bit of things that a couple of things that I mistakenly omitted in chapter 1, where we talked about the job description of the 144,000 and some other things as well. So again, check out chapter 1. But I unintentionally, I didn't get around to mentioning a couple pointers, so I'll be brief with those. The 144,000, as I mentioned, to some extent or not, but I'll delve a little bit deeper here in this chapter right here. The 144,000 guys, we are the leaders. We are the leaders, and we are the leaders of this battle. That's what this is, guys. And you can boil that down to a religious type of perspective, a scientific type of perspective, an astrological type of perspective, philosophical, spiritual, whatever that means to you. But there is a battle, there's a shift that's taking place that exists between that whose time is come to be born and is battling against that whose time it has come to die. So the early AM light coming in and pushing out the evening darkness. However you want to, philosophical or specific you want to be about it, it is a battle that's taking place. In the 144,000, we are the leaders of this battle, and we are the leaders in the fact that we are to lead and guide what the Bible refers to as the great multitude. So we're the special ops unit that goes in first, do some heavy, set some heavy explosive devices, just metaphorically speaking, guys. If we was to use a military analogy, we're the ones that sneak behind the scenes and do the reconnaissance, map out the roads, get information, set booby traps, and do all these things to prep the area for the main forces that will land later. But it's just like the tip of the spear, guys. If the tip of the spear doesn't penetrate the target, then how can the head, the shaft, and all of that penetrate the target? So the 144,000, we must and we will get the job done. It's that truth is irreversible, and it is indisputable or undisputable as well. So we're the leaders. We got to keep this in mind, guys, as we talk about, what are the job descriptions. We got to keep this in mind that we are the leaders, and we are the leaders of the chosen ones, what the Bible refers to as the great multitude. And we have been anointed for battle. Now we know that everyone that carries the light has been anointed for battle. But again, the main, if we were to use that military analysis or analogy again, the main body, of soldiers or infantry or whatnot, they're not as prepared. Even though they're soldiers, they're going to fight, they're going to do everything they can, they're going to do their job, but they're not as prepared, they're not as equipped as the special forces, the frogmen, Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, Green Berets. These type of guys have specialties. And this is why 50 or 100 of them can probably go out and kill 1,000 of the enemy troops. And again, we're talking spiritual battle. So I don't want anybody listening to this to get the wrong idea. Just using this as an analogy. So the special ops, they're gifted, they're talented, they're trained in all different kinds of arts and weaponry and strategies and tactics and all these different things that the main army is not. It's not to take anything away from the main army, because the main army is going to come through, 10, 20, 50,000 men, whereas the special forces maybe just be 100 or what have you. And so we need that main army to come through, but the main army needs for the special forces to go in and set things up, kind of, grease the tracks, if you will. So we got to be aware of the fact that we are anointed for battle. Those of us who are amongst 144,000, we are anointed for battle in an entirely different way. And do not be deceived. Do not be misguided. Do not be distracted into thinking that there is not a battle taking place. All of the modern religions, the modern philosophies, whether it's Buddhism or Confucianism, whether it's the Bible or the Quran, as well as ancient philosophy, spiritual teachings, and religions that predate the more modern religions. They all talk about this day and age that we're living in, where it all comes to a climax at the end of days, most people refer to it as, where this shift take place and balance is restored in the earth, and leading this charge is what some refer to as the first fruits or the 144,000. So there is a battle taking place, and what we got to remember to do again. So all of that is a part of us knowing our job description. If you don't know your job description, and you think you're going to just show up and bake cookies, or you're just going to show up and work on a construction site, whatever the case may be. If you don't know your job description, well, the fact of the matter is, you're not going to be on a construction site. You're not going to be baking cookies either. You're actually going to be sitting in the office. You're actually going to have to run a couple, laps or a mini marathon that day, and you showed up ill prepared with your attitude, with your behavior, what's in your lunchbox, your dress code. All of that was ill prepared because you wasn't aware of your job description. So this is why we must be aware of our job description, and we got to know that it's a battle taking place. We got to accept that, and we got to. One of the things we got to do is to be able to keep our energies up, guys. Remember, we are co-creators. We're here. And our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our intentions. I've shared this with you guys over and over again as far as these concepts / these truths about the universe, how it actually works on a mechanical or subparticle, metaphysical level, pardon me. And so the thoughts, the feelings, and the emotion actually has an effect on the 3D, what we call hard reality, mind over matter. That's a real thing, mind over physical matter. But I digress and get back to the point that I'm making. But the point in and of itself is that we have to be able to keep our energies high, not in a fake way, not in a denial way, or we're just turning a blind eye and we're faking it and everything's rainbow and unicorns. Not in that kind of way either. In a way that says, in the midst of the trials, in the midst of the tribulations, in the midst of my own shortcomings, in the midst of the betrayals, etc., etc., I still have the divine responsibility. It's still a part of my job description. I still have to get her done. And even though I'm walking through that storm, not deny the storm, but instead become totally aware of the storm, rest comfortably in the eye of the storm, be in the storm, but not let the storm get in me as a member of the 144,000 and yourself as a member of the 144,000 as well. We'll talk about the chosen ones here in a minute. Their path is a little bit different, but just like when you're in the eye of that storm, you're in that storm, but that's where the calmness is. If you go through a hurricane, a tornado, whatever, if you can make it through all the winds and the rain and the power of it all, and you can get right there in the middle of that storm, it's totally calm right there in the center. So we're in the storm, but we don't let the storm get in us. And we got to know that it's a part of our job description for us to accept the responsibility when it comes to who we are, our God-given responsibility in terms of the path that's been set before us, the different assignments that we have individually within the kingdom, our responsibility of advancing the kingdom / being the leaders of the great multitude, or setting the path, greasing the tracks for the great multitude, who are most commonly referred to as the chosen ones. Remember, guys, the chosen ones, which I'm going to talk about here now, and I may have some things that you guys may not agree with, you guys may be uncomfortable with, but I mean, what is life, if without, disagreement and without being uncomfortable from time to time? So the chosen ones, we got to remember, as members of the 144,000, we got to remember that the chosen ones, they are oftentimes just as, how can I say, just as unsure, just as perhaps dissuaded as we all have been at some point as it relates to these times that we live in, this darkness, this evil beast that we're facing as a species. The chosen ones, like everybody else, again, including myself and all of us at one time, we went through this phase where we kind of thought, this thing can't be defeated, man. The good book says, who can make war against the beast? You're talking about a beast that controls the ability to send a weapon from this side of the earth to the other side of the earth and hit a specific barn. You're talking about a beast that, can control and manipulate who gets a job, who doesn't get the job. You're talking about a beast who can control things like who your neighbors are. He can cut you off and excommunicate you. Hence, if you don't have the mark of the beast, you can't buy or sell nothing. How can we beat this thing? So the chosen ones, those that end up being the chosen ones, they got to be called first, and of course they got to follow the process through. But they're just like we all are. What are we trying to fool ourselves for? How can we beat this thing? And yet the devil is a lie. So we got to keep that in mind. And you as chosen ones, coming from this orientation, this background, this template, and not being amongst the 144,000 who destiny is predestined, and we get to this point by way of the Holy Spirit and divine timing to where we just know that we know that all power in heaven and earth has been given unto us. So we realize that, but only after a certain process and after a certain hurt, pain, mistakes, us doing wrong, being wrong, making mistakes, all this kinds of stuff. But we ultimately get there. And the chosen ones oftentimes are still in that crowd. They have to tread a certain path in order for them to get out of that crowd. And they can really start believing and knowing that this thing that we call the beast and his system can, in fact, be defeated. But without us, the 144,000 leading the charge in our attitude, our conduct, our mannerisms, being able to stay humble, being able to, ignore BS, rise above BS, sidestep BS, and confront BS when the Holy Spirit moves us to do so. How to walk in wisdom, compassion, love, courage, boldness, tolerance, and all this other stuff. By doing these type of things, which we have to do and which we will do because, again, his word, stands forever. So, but we have to be mindful of our job description so that we can, again, grease the tracks, to use that term again, and show the chosen ones who come out from the darkness. Just like the 144,000, we were all once darkness. And in fact, as I mentioned, quite often here on this channel, the 144,000 usually, typically, I dare to say, nearly always come out of the darkness in terms of, some of the most prominent biblical teachers and references and prophets that we have. Moses was a killer. We know that all the disciples were broke. We know that didn't have any money. We know that Christ at one time was homeless. We know that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute. We know that Samson was a womanizer, and so forth and so on. So oftentimes 144,000 have to come out of that darkness as well. But this is how we grease the tracks to show the chosen ones that it can be done, and that we carry the bulk of the burden. We do the heavy lifting. Not everyone in the Bible was a warrior like Elijah. There wasn't a warrior like David. There wasn't a warrior like Samson. There wasn't a warrior like Gideon. These are specific men who, even though everybody that's born with this thing we call the light are anointed to battle, these were the special forces, the special ops, if you will, back in those days. So the 144,000 in this generation as well, we have been appointed as the tip of the spear when it comes to this battle. Now, as I mentioned, let me see, I'm at 20 minutes. Let's try and get this done in at least 40 tops, guys. As I mentioned, we're going to get into the chosen ones, and we're going to talk about, you guys' job description, and a couple things I'm going to say you guys may not vibe with, you may not even believe, you may totally disagree with. But as I mentioned in chapter 1, this is what's been downloaded to me personally. I'm not saying this for you to agree with. In fact, I encourage each and every single one of you to do your own research, to do your own critical thinking, to establish your own continual and constant, communication with this thing that we call God, so that you can get information downloaded straight from source. And let that be the ultimate end all be all. So keep that in mind, guys. But as it relates to the chosen ones and your job description, it entails you, number one, to not just answer the call, but to continue to follow the call. Many are called, but few are chosen. It's the chosen ones. That's what makes the difference between the called one and the chosen ones. Because the called ones, many are called, and many are just going to ignore that call. Just like you get a call on your cell phone. You can feel like talking or not. You can be interested in that person or not. I call them back later. No, I don't want to talk to them. You have a choice in the matter. And some people aren't even going to answer that call. And of course, we know about the disciples of darkness. They're not even going to receive the call to begin with. They are of their father, the devil. So we're talking about a whole different breed over there. But as far as the chosen ones, this is how you go from being called to being chosen. Because you have to go through the processes of it all. You have to answer the call, first of all. And then with that call, just like you look at your cell phone, you may get a text message or a phone call, that caller ID pops up. That caller ID represents, okay, you got something deep down in your spirit. Something came across your mind. Something came across your soul, tugged on your spiritual man or woman. straight from this thing that we call God. And when you look down at that phone, instead of it being a name, you got that impression that says, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be making changes. I know you've been doing that all your life, but now here's the call. The phone wasn't ringing all day. That's fine. But when you got a certain point, you did get that call. And it says, you know what, you shouldn't be doing this. Or what you did in the past was wrong. Don't ever do it again. Or some information about your friends, your family. Some information about society, your government. You look down at that ID and your eyes were open. You got that call. And then some people that get that call going to look at their ID, their phone ID, and they're just going to keep right on going. This movie is interesting. I'm behind schedule, getting out of the house on time for work. Whatever the case may be, they're going to get that call and they're going to deny that call. They're not even going to answer it. And then, of course, we got some people that's going to get the call. They're going to answer the phone. But, again, whether you're late for work, you had to rush the phone call, didn't really want to talk to them, the conversation wasn't pleasant, the topic wasn't what you were interested in at that time, you get off that phone. Same thing when it comes to the chosen ones, going from being called to end up being chosen, a part of the great multitude. So the called ones, they're just going to remain called ones. They're going to either deny that call, they're going to get that call, they're going to talk a little bit. It's not going to be fuzzy-wuzzy, not what they're interested in, whatever the case. They're going to get off that call. The chosen ones are just going to keep right on with that phone call. It wasn't pleasant. They were late for work. / they had to make a change in their attitude. / they had to make a change in the way that they view politics, that they view religions, that they view their neighbor, that they view themselves, their financial goals, whatever. They're just going to keep on, they're going to stay on that phone call and follow the Lamb wherever it leads. And that's how the chosen ones go from just being called to being chosen. They follow the Lamb wherever he goes. So it all starts with you answering the call and to continue on with that call. This is a part of the chosen one's job description. As I mentioned in chapter 1, where we talk about the job description of the 144,000, this too holds true as it relates to the job description of the chosen ones. You have to, and I'm going to talk about this maybe a little bit later in this message. We'll see if time permits. But you have to be able to maintain, just like I mentioned in chapter 1, you have to be able to develop things like sharpening your focus, crystallizing your purpose, managing your time, emotional discipline, sharpening and increasing the IQ of your discernment. All these different things by way of the Holy Spirit. Of course, you're going to have to be able to do these things as part of your job description. And these things are done by way of you establishing and being totally committed to daily spiritual, physical, and in my opinion, mental rituals as well. Rituals, practices, indulgences, whatever you want to call them. A ritual is just something that you do every single day, seemingly as close to possible at the same time under the same circumstances, possibly even in the same location. It's a ritual. That's all a ritual means. So you got to have a strong prayer life. And in the belief of this ministry, you also got to be, have a strong commitment to your physical conditioning. You don't have to be a bodybuilder or, a fitness model. You don't have to be some runway superstar, hot girl. You just have to be conscious and do something every single day to acknowledge your mind, your body, and your spirit. So you're going to have to, in order to achieve the things that I just mentioned, the spiritual growth and development, the emotional discipline, walking in wisdom, all these different things, you're going to have to use your spiritual disciplines. Rely on them spiritual disciplines, the spiritual rituals, day in and day out. Again, try to do them at the same time under certain situations, circumstances, preferably in the same exact location. Have a place that you consider your sanctuary. I don't care if it's at the end of the book, at the end of the row of books on the job, where nobody can see you. At 12 o'clock, that's where you go. You go stand there for 30, 60 seconds, whatever it is. At 12 o'clock, that's where you go to start your lunch break. You spend 90 seconds there just thanking God, decompressing, whatever it is. You have a ritual. You're going to have to keep disciplined and committed to those. Let me try to speed this up. Another thing that you're going to have to do as a part of your job description is there's going to have to be constant self-assessment, constant self-evaluation and introspectiveness, where you just sit back and say, okay, how well am I doing? Am I dotting my I's? Am I crossing my T's in terms of, my spiritual disciplines, in terms of my mental toughness and resilience, in terms of my spiritual ineptness, in terms of my emotional control? How am I doing? Constant assessment. Because again, without that focus, it's difficult. You end up one day, 1 year, 10 years down the line wondering, how did you end up there? And trust me, I have been there. I was once upon a time that frog in the pot where things just changed gradually and gradually and gradually. And then I woke up one day and said, how the heck did I end up there? So I've been there. So trust me, I'm speaking from experience. These things can happen. So your daily rituals is one of the things that you're going to have, dare I say, the most important thing that you're going to have to rely on in order for you to get to the next level, continuing to answer that call as and so that you can move on to become just a called one to a chosen one. Let me see what else I got here, guys. Trying to speed this up. Okay, now here's the part where, let me throw this in. Along the journey, like I said, your spiritual disciplines, that's going to help you when it comes to accepting the bumps and bruises, as well as helping you in your own self-assessment, self-evaluation, developing your mental toughness, following the path that he set before you in terms of, well, you know what, I've been doing this all my life. This has been my religion. This is who I am. This is what my family taught me. This is what everybody in the neighborhood is doing. In order for you to break those chains, as well as in order for you to continue to take the lumps and the bruises that just comes along with the journey, the disconnecting, the severing part where you're severing relationships, thoughts, ways, ideas, patterns, beliefs. You're severing all of that. It's a very brutal process. And your daily spiritual rituals, which is what's keeping you nourished by way of this thing that we call God, and keeping you nourished by this thing that we most commonly refer to as God. Your daily rituals is what's going to be the end all be all when it comes to just getting there efficiently, as effectively as possible, instead of driving down the highway with your emergency brake on. So there's going to be plenty of bumps and the bruises. You're going to have to be prepared when you show up in terms of your job description. You're going to have to be prepared for all of that. Ain't no sense you coming in there with no tuxedo or no evening gown on when we telling you, okay, there's going to be mud and water splashing everywhere. You comprehend the point that I'm making? So now here's an area where, again, you guys may not agree with me. That's fine. But you guys gotta, part of your job description is to recognize the 144,000. You have to be able to recognize these people. And what the part that you guys may not agree with is this. The 144,000, based on their journey itself, based on the past experiences, based on how their eyes have been opened and the way they view the world, these would be the people that society would say is weird. But when you look at these people, the only thing that may be weird about them is the fact that maybe they're what we would call antisocial, maybe they're what we would call reclusive, these are just people that just kind of walk to the beat of their own drum, period. And in a world where conformity is what it's all about, these people dare to walk to the beat of their own drum. And so when you zoom out, you'll realize that that's basically all, if you want to call it weird, fine. That's all that's quote unquote weird about them. They're not bothering anybody. They're not walking around like tough guy, tough girl. They're not walking around like, Miss Upsidity and High Sidity and turning her nose down at everybody. She's just modest. She's just cool. Energy is always smooth. But she doesn't try to fit in. He doesn't try to fit in. And so you guys have to learn to recognize these people, because what you may not agree with is the fact that I know there's only 144,000. That's a literal number of individuals on this planet. That's a literal figure. So the chances that you guys have bumped into or came across a real member of the 144,000, I know we got everybody out there claiming that, where they say everybody, there's too many chiefs and not enough Indians. Everybody want to be a chief. Well, how the heck where's all the Indians going to come from? So we know a lot of people are claiming stuff and proposing to be stuff, whatever. But if there's a chance that you guys have came across these people, that may be not all that great of a chance, given that there's only 144,000 in the midst of nearly 8 billion people on this planet. But if you have came across somebody and they fit the description that I just laid out, they're always talked about, they always seem to be excommunicated, mocked. Some of the worst rumors are about them. People no one seemingly likes them. Everybody really just treats them foul, rejects them. And yet when they walk in the room, you can feel the atmosphere shift, and everybody, whether they like them or whether they hate them, everybody is drawn to them. It's like it's all eyes on them at all times. If you come across these kind of people, it's your responsibility to recognize that may very well, didn't say it is, but it may very well be a member of the 144,000. And what takes place is that, remember, the chosen one, my spiritual family members, come from this background. You're enveloped in this same bubble. So it's easy to come across that kind of person and unintentionally follow suit with the masses and prejudge them and excommunicate them, to talk about them, to make yourself distant from them, just like everybody else does. Because when you look at them, unless you've taken a very deliberate, a very intentional, zoomed out perspective, when you look at them, you could see, oh, wow, yeah, I see why everybody called them weird. I see why nobody talks to them. I see why nobody likes them. But then if you take that zoomed out perspective, if you assume your God-given responsibility as a chosen one and say, okay, hold on a second. Let me just observe here. In fact, let me see if I can have some kind of organic interaction with this person to see if they're mean, if they're arrogant, if they're distant, if they're truculent, if they're aggressive, if they're mean-spirited. How about I do that? But oftentimes, my spiritual family members, the chosen ones, are those who are pushing forward to become a chosen one. If you aren't careful, you make the same mistakes as the people of the world. So you got to learn how to recognize the 144,000. That is a must. That is a given. And you got to be able to address your own issues and circumstances that you have about yourself when you come across, if you come into the presence of one of these people, because their energy, it's vibrating in a way that just may make you feel bad. It may make you feel like, okay, they're antagonistic. Yeah, they are mean-spirited. What's that energy about? But that energy is so high, it's so powerful, it's vibrating and oscillating from on levels that even my spiritual brothers and sisters, the chosen ones, even they cannot fathom. It's an energy that, again, is so rare. Again, you talk about 144,000 people out of 6 billion people. So you don't come across this energy. And when you come across it, it's easy for it to be mischaracterized, misinterpreted, misread. And that guy, that girl is just going on about their business. See, so you got to be able to recognize these people. You can't end up, the flip side of that is you could end up being like the Pharisees and the Sadducees, those who know the law, those who know the Bible back and front and sideways and cat a corner and in circle. They know every scripture. They know the origins of every scripture. But yet when their leader was standing right there in front of them, they didn't recognize him. The energy, his teachings, his mindsets, his belief, his concept, his philosophies, his authority that he walked in. All these people that were lined up, sound familiar? The chosen ones. All these people that were lined up and walking the right path because they wasn't totally in tune with themselves and taking that zoomed out approach. Not only did they not recognize their leader when he was in front of them, but they hung him. They crucified him. So some of my spiritual brothers, and again, this ties into the point that I said most of you guys may not agree with. Some of my spiritual brothers and sisters are out there. If you've come across this kind of person, whether they're a member of the 144,000 or not, you treat these people in a way that they don't deserve to be treated. Just because you feel a certain way. And the fact of the matter is, they're not responsible for the way that you feel. You are responsible for the way that you feel. Now, have they done anything? Have they mean-mugged you, invaded your personal space, called you names, or was insolent, aggressive towards you, mean-spirited towards you? If they did something, that's a different story. But 10 times out of 10, chances are, 100% of the time, chances are, they've done none of that to you. Their energy is just so rare that oftentimes it could be off-putting, it could be intimidating, it could be frustrating, it could come off as arrogance or whatever. But that's your job to zoom out and see the truth of the matter and not let your feelings take you down the same path that it took the Sadducees and the Pharisees down, and they ended up crucifying their leader. So I'm going to wrap this up, guys. Remember, if and when Heavenly Father blesses you to be able to recognize or even come across one of these rare individuals, being able to recognize them as a part of your job description and then being able to humble yourself, not for that individual. You don't humble yourself for anybody but God when it comes to submitting. We're all humble. We get that. But as far as being submissive, you don't be submissive to anybody but God. So that's not what I'm saying. But you have to recognize these people's authority, and you have to do your job. You have to get outside of the ego. You have to get outside of the in vogue culture. You have to get outside of your beliefs, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. And you got to look at the facts and realize that this guy is here to lead. This is my captain. This is my general on the battlefield. And so you have to be able to go to God and make sure that you become okay with that. And not becoming, aggressive yourself, not becoming dismissive yourself, not becoming, well, I ain't finna submit to, to him in terms of honoring his or her position, in the kingdom. I'm going to do this, and that would be a great error. So listen, guys, I'm at 39 minutes, roughly 40. So I'm going to get out of here, man. Everything that I said in these 2 chapters is basically, essentially what I said in a lot of chapters, guys, that's really substantive and meaty. It's just a crash course. No I's have been dotted, no T's have been crossed. It's just the appetizer that says, hey, this is the main menu presented in the form of an appetizer. Because if I had to try to put the whole menu into one video, hey man, this is why you see sometimes you click on here, I got some chapters, there's 10 chapters. Some of my teachings or messages have 8, 9, 10 chapters. And they're all 40 minutes apiece. And that still end up being just a scratch the surface type of deal. So If you have follow-up questions, that's the point I'm making. If you have follow-up questions, if you want research or study material, reach out to this ministry. I'll leave an email link down in the description box. Let's talk about the services just real quick. It's a holistic mind, body, and spirit ministry. This ministry provides you with real-world services that are designed to help you achieve holistic health, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Holistic health. So please watch a video that's titled MBS Service Tutorial. That'll explain all the services. If you'd like to schedule your initial consultation and evaluation in any or all of the services, hit that same email link down in the description box. And please, guys, do me a personal favor, if you would, please. There's a video out there that talks about not just the services about the ministry, but the origins, the roots of the ministry. And it also talks about some very important disclosure type of information about myself. Please watch this video. It's called My Testimony and Disclosure. The reason why it's so important to me because it allows me to share the story with you guys about all that he's done for me, all that he continues to do for me. And he is real. He's still on the throne. He's still performing miracles, guys. You're looking at a miracle. Not me. Just what he's done with me. And if he did it for me, he'll do it for you. I just trust me. I'm not here because I'm smart or brave or tough or wise or clever or lucky or none of that. I'm here strictly because of him. So please watch that video, guys, and know that he's still performing miracles, guys. Now, if you'd like to support this ministry, guys, please be sure to hit the share button. Let's start there, guys. That's the most important message of all when it comes to this ministry. Hit that share button, guys. If you got anything of value out of this, anything at all, even if you maybe didn't get value out of it, but you think, this may be good for somebody else, then what other cause, what other purpose do we serve? We have to help each other. I got a video on deck called Unite. We have to help one another, guys, because the dark seekers, the disciples of darkness, they're bonded together tight. Like 5 fat men in a phone booth. They're in there tight. When it comes to them uniting with their spell casting and evil chants and all that stuff. So we got to unite, guys. Listen, please. Make a long story short, hit the share button, guys. It means a great deal to the ministry. It also may mean even more to the person that received the message at the time that you share it. Also, please hit the thumbs up button, if you would, please. Hit the bell icon if you like to receive notifications, and hit the subscribe if you aren't already subscribed. If you'd like to make a monetary donation to show your generosity, your thanks, your support for this ministry, I'm going to leave a Cash App link in the description box for that. Remember, if it's $1, totally grateful. If it's $100, I'm totally grateful. If it's several $100s, I'm totally grateful. Get the point? It's not about and that wasn't, sarcasm, but just making a point. Look, whatever you give according to your heart, give according to your wallet, give according to what he moves you to give. I thank you for it. I receive it in advance. Receive your harvest in advance. A harvest is shaken down, pressed together, and running over. And last but certainly not least, guys, remember this is a mind, body, and spirit ministry, and you have been anointed to, regardless of what's going on, you've been anointed to keep your mind, your body, and your spirit as healthy, as active, and as vibrant as possible. And this ministry has been anointed to help you achieve that goal. Reach out if I could be of service to you. That's what I got for you guys. I love you all whose hearts are in the right place. I will see you guys in the next one. I am Brother Minister Mongoose, and I will holler back. Peace.